All right, let's jump right in. So many people, especially if you're thinking about a career change, really struggle to show how their experience in one field connects to another. In this explainer, we're going to dig into how your background, particularly from demanding fields like public safety, is absolutely packed with project management experience you probably don't even realize you have.
It's a really common challenge, isn't it? You've got the skills, you've got leadership, coordination, communication, but trying to map them to the specific lingo of a new industry can feel like a giant wall. But the truth is, the core principles are almost always the same. It's not about learning a new skill, it's about learning a new language for the skills you already master.
Okay, first things first, we need to strip away all the corporate jargon and get right to the heart of what a project really is. And you know what? It's a lot simpler than you think.
That's literally it. A project is any temporary effort. It has a beginning and it has an end. So whether you're rewriting a huge operations plan, building a treehouse for your kids, or launching some new software for a global company, guess what? You are managing a project.
And here's the thing, almost every single one of those projects, no matter the industry, follows this basic life cycle. In emergency response, you might call this the initial response, the size-up, operations, and then demobilization. The names change, but the flow is exactly the same. This four-phase structure, it's the key to everything.
Now, what's really cool is how we can take the work you've already done and translate it into this universal language of project management. Let's break down exactly how to do that. Think of this three-step framework as your personal Rosetta Stone. First, you're just going to list out the unique work you've done. The special events, the big initiatives. Then you'll map your role to its project management equivalent. And finally, you'll connect all your tasks back to those four core phases we just talked about. And this right here illustrates the parallels perfectly. The city leadership that gives the green light for an initiative, they're the project sponsor. The planning section that's coordinating all the moving parts, that's your project management office, the PMO. A resource unit leader is basically a project coordinator, and a documentation unit leader is providing that crucial administrative support. The titles are different, but the functions, they're identical.
Okay, let's make this real. We're going to dive into some actual examples from public safety to see how this translation works in the wild. This is where it's all going to click.
So for our first case study, imagine taking a massive, dense emergency operations plan and completely rewriting it to be a practical, usable tool for first responders in a real crisis. The goal was to go from a document that just sits on a shelf to one that actually helps save lives. Now look at this breakdown. Building the business case to convince leadership that this rewrite was even necessary, that's the initiating phase. Meeting with all the department heads to plan out the schedule and who does what, that's planning. Doing the actual rewrites and getting feedback, that's executing. And getting that final sign-off from the health director, boom, you're closing the project. It's a perfect one-to-one match.
All right, let's look at a project that's less about documents and way more about people. This one involved totally overhauling the annual shift bidding process for over 200 EMS providers. That's a task that is just loaded with logistical and, frankly, emotional complexity.
The big change here was moving from a system based purely on seniority to one that also brought in performance metrics. And as you can probably guess, that required some serious stakeholder management. When you change how something's been done for years, you have to be ready to communicate, to justify, and to manage the human side of that project. Think about these activities: pulling performance data and running analysis, creating these incredibly complex system-wide schedules to make sure there's coverage, and then having to present your plan to leadership for approval, what they called the murder board. These are all classic project management tasks, and setting a firm go-live date, that's exactly like setting a deployment date for new software. Now let's go big, a project on a massive scale. A multi-day international cycling championship that required a huge, coordinated public safety response across local, state, and federal agencies. This was an enormous undertaking.
So in this event, the role was Resource Unit Leader. The job? Just track and ensure the accountability and safety of over 7,000 responders over 9 days. That is a staggering amount of resource coordination, which is an absolute core pillar of project management. And this right here is a crucial point. You don't have to be the one in charge of the entire event to get project experience. If you developed a more efficient check-in process for those 7,000 responders, you managed a project. If you planned the safe demobilization of all that equipment and personnel, that was your project.
Okay, let's move to our final case and see how even roles that seem purely administrative are, in fact, project management roles in the skies. This example comes from the detailed planning for a vice presidential debate.
So as the documentation unit leader, the tasks were clear. Keep complete incident files, which is just project record keeping. Compile and send out the action plan, which is identical to preparing and sharing a project charter. And creating contingency plans for 17 different what-if scenarios, that is pure risk management. These skills are absolutely indispensable for any project manager. So, we've defined what a project is, we've laid out the framework for you, and we've walked through some really clear, real-world examples. Now, let's turn this lens on your career. It's your turn to do the translation.
This is the key. You have to recognize and value your own experience. It doesn't matter if you are a stay-at-home parent organizing a family move, a plumber scheduling jobs and materials, or a police officer planning a community event, you have managed projects. Period.
So remember these takeaways. Start seeing your work through the lens of projects. Break down what you did into initiating, planning, executing, and closing. Translate your unique accomplishments into the language that hiring managers actually understand, and put that powerful news story at the top of your resume and in your next interview.
By reframing your past, you can unlock your future. The experience is already there. You just need to know how to talk about it. I really hope this explainer helps you see the project manager you already are. Thanks for watching.